For centuries, the Freemasons have been one of the world's most fascinating and, well, secret societies. But what actually happens behind those closed doors? Well, today, we're going to find out. We're using a really controversial book from 1866 that just blew the whole thing wide open. So let's pull back the curtain.
You know, right from the get-go, the author, Malcolm Duncan, makes this pretty bold claim. He says it wasn't charity or brotherly love that drew people in. Nope, it was just pure, raw curiosity. He's basically saying the Masons knew that the power of a secret, that allure of the unknown, is what really gets people, and they used it to grow their ranks.
So Duncan was playing this really clever game. On the one hand, he pitched his book as this helpful little guide for new members trying to learn all the complicated rules. But really, it was a tell-all, a detailed peek behind the curtain for a public that was absolutely dying to know what was going on in there. He was playing both sides, and because of that, we have this incredible historical document.
Okay, so before we can really dig into the rituals, we need to understand the stage where it all happens. Let's step inside the Masonic Lodge itself, a place where every single detail is designed to separate their world from the outside one.
What's so wild here is that the room's layout is literally a tool of power. You've got the leader, the worshipful master, sitting over in the east. That's number 15, where the sun rises. That symbolizes enlightenment and, total authority. Then all the way at the other end, at number 21, you've got the Tyler. He's the guy guarding the door, the literal gatekeeper.
So this isn't just about having a president and a security guard. This whole system is designed for absolute control over who gets in and what information gets out. The worshipful master has total authority inside the room, while the Tyler is this iron wall against the outside world. It's basically a fortress of secrecy.
And check this out, this detail really shows you how obsessed they were with privacy. They often met on the second or third floor of buildings. They were literally and figuratively placing themselves above the regular world. Every little choice was about reinforcing how separate they were.
All right, we've seen the stage, now let's look at the script. The Masons had their own secret language, this whole complex system of coded words, responses, and of course, secret signs. Let's try to decode a little bit of it.
Yeah, forget just banging a gavel and saying, "Meeting started." Opening a Masonic lodge was a full-on production. It was this highly scripted call-and-response ceremony between the officers. Everything was memorized, reinforcing who was who and why they were there.
And the language itself was so symbolic. Listen to this. The worshipful master asks a new guy, basically, where did you get ready to become a Mason? And the answer isn't a place. It's in my heart. That's not just some nice poetry. It's a core belief. Masonry wasn't something you just join like a club. It was something you had to be prepared for on the inside first.
Okay, so even their secret hand gestures had specific names. A do-guard was simply the way you held your hands when you were taking an oath. But the sign, well, the sign was a lot darker. It was a physical gesture that acted out the violent penalty you'd face if you broke that oath.
And here is the most chilling example. For the very first degree, the sign is to draw your hand across your throat. It's a direct, silent reminder of the penalty you swore to accept, having your throat slit if you ever spill their secrets. It's a language of loyalty that's backed up by a pretty serious threat. With stakes that high, you can bet they weren't letting just anyone waltz in. Getting into the Freemasons was a serious, multi-step process. It was designed to weed out anyone who wasn't 100% committed. Let's walk through that whole application gauntlet.
So it wasn't as simple as filling out a form. First, you had to be formally recommended by members who were already in. Then, they'd form a committee to go and investigate you, your character, your reputation, the whole deal. Only if you passed that could you move on to the final nerve-wracking step, the ballot.
And this is where it gets really intense. Every single member in that room would vote, anonymously, using a special box with white balls and black balls. White means yes, black means no. And the rule was absolute. If they found even one single black ball in that box, you were out, rejected. It had to be unanimous.
But, passing that vote was really just the beginning. The real test, the thing that would bind you to them for life, was the initiation ritual itself. So let's follow our candidate, who the book calls Mr. Gabe, as he prepares to step into the darkness.
Before he can even enter the room, they completely break Mr. Gabe down. He's blindfolded so he can't see. They take his coat and shoes, stripping him of his status in the outside world. And that rope around his neck, called a cable tow, is a clear symbol of submission. They're erasing the individual so they can rebuild him as one of them.
Then, at the door, there's this really dramatic exchange that sets the stage for everything. The question is asked, who comes here? And the answer frames the whole thing as this journey from ignorance to enlightenment. He is a man who's been lost in the dark and is now begging to be brought into their light. He's not an equal, he's a supplicant.
The moment he steps inside, the ordeal starts. Remember, he's blindfolded, but he can suddenly feel this sharp point being pressed against his bare chest. They tell him it's a compass, and that its pain should be a constant reminder to his conscience if he ever even thinks about betraying their secrets.
Next, he's led on this disorienting trip around the lodge. He can't see a thing, but he hears the gavels of the officers rapping as he passes their stations. It's like he's being introduced to the power structure of the lodge through sound and movement alone.
And finally, he's brought to the very center of the room and he's forced to kneel at the altar. He's placed in this really specific position on his bare left knee with his right leg forming a perfect square. It's a posture of complete submission right before he takes the oath that will change everything.
And this is the terrifying oath he has to repeat. He swears to keep their secrets and agrees that if he breaks his promise, the penalty is mutilation and death, throat cut, tongue torn out, and his body buried in the sand where the tide will wash over it. I mean, this is the psychological core of the entire ritual.
So after swearing this absolutely brutal oath, there's one final act to seal the deal. As a sign of his sincerity, the still blindfolded candidate has to lean forward and kiss the book that his hands have been resting on the whole time, the Holy Bible. And this is what he was swearing on, the square and compasses, probably the most famous symbols in all of Freemasonry, laid right on top of the open Bible. This mix of tools, morality, and holy scripture formed the bedrock of the vow he just took, a vow that was now unbreakable.
Looking back at this 1866 ritual, it's like a masterclass in psychology. They used fear, vulnerability, symbolism, all of it to forge a bond that was meant to last forever. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? In our super transparent, always online world today, what role is there for rituals like this? Is that deep human need for belonging, even if it's forged in secrecy and fear, more powerful now than ever before?